It's July 30th. We've got breaking news with a fresh wave of strikes just last night from CENTCOM into Iran. And then this footage right here is showing the actual fresh strikes from CENTCOM, showing the F-18 blasting off the carrier. Also fresh pictures of a mobile command truck. Looks to be completely crushed, potentially controlling drones from those trucks right there. Looks like some sort of IRGC headquarters or safe house taken out. More of Iran's boats. Looks like they snuck some out that they had hidden somewhere. Oh, imagine that. And then a hole in a hillside that could be used to launch ballistic missiles out of rocket launcher trucks. Those fast attack boats have been hiding in coves under camouflage netting for weeks. And that hillside opening is a classic tunnel entrance for a launcher to roll out and fire. So this is a lot of different strikes that are happening right now. Massive engagements happening just last night. That was a 3-hour engagement window from what we can tell, mainly over southern Iran. Finished at 10 p.m. Eastern time last night. But the photograph that they posted just a few hours earlier is something that no one else will probably talk about. It's an F-16, but hanging off that F-16 looks like GBU-38 JDAMs or GBU-54S. They're both 500-pound bombs. Also GBU-39 small diameter bombs. Those are 250-pound warheads. A lot of those are used to reduce collateral damage. So could they be striking IRGC headquarters locations in more of a cultural city-type buildup? Because remember, the IRGC loves putting their headquarters right in the civilian population. If they can get a headquarters under a museum, a university, a school, a hospital, that's a win for the IRGC. Remember, they're focused on using human shields. That's their #1 go-to game plan, just like any good terrorist would. So one of the main things that I noticed when I walked out to fighter jets, when you walk out to that jet and you see the different armament that's on it, that really frames exactly what's going to go on today. And you've pre-briefed it, so you know what's on the jet. So you walk out there, you see GBU-54S, you see APKWS rockets like this Viper has right here, and you know that you're going into a multi-dimensional combat mission. You do a walk around, you check every station, and you count what's hanging there. That loadout tells you the mission before anybody says a word. So these fighter pilots right now, they don't know what they're going to face exactly, right? Because it could be a dozen drones blasting from an IRGC base. It could be a ballistic missile in the boost phase. Who knows what those fighter jets are tasked to target? Or it could be those hillside sites with that hole, which could potentially be a missile tube. You've seen on some of my live streams, we've gone over the missile bases on the imagery, and you can see there's holes inside of hills, like an anthill, that they're launching ballistic missiles out of. So, it's very impressive, very cool to see that CENTCOM is actually targeting those now. But we know that 2 nights ago, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, they ranged in ballistic missiles on Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, on what Iranian commanders claimed was CENTCOM's forward headquarters. 5 missiles came off the rail. Jordanian air defenses combined with US forces swept all 5 into the dirt. Not one got through. And it was a surprise attack. CENTCOM called it an attempted surprise attack, because that's exactly what it is. And it became an attempted surprise attack because of the professionalism of the US military and partner forces. Today though, the Viper with the loadout. We're gonna cover that, what it could be doing. APKWS rockets launching off, striking down drones, multiple drones being launched as well last night from the reports I'm seeing. And we'll talk about how the F-16 teams up with the Anduril Fury and the X-Bat advanced drones. Those aren't confirmed in the theater yet, but that's the next level. So we'll talk about that. And then remember, we got the global roundup section. And today we'll be talking about an F-16 driver who took a scramble in Poland. And we'll talk about what that F-16 driver found in the breaking news global roundup section about 3/4 of the way through the video. So CENTCOM basically rolled in. They watched Iran blast off their ballistic missiles. And CENTCOM was like, cool, Iran, it's your barbecue, but we're just cooking. And by cooking, we're basically swatting down all of your ballistic missiles. No big deal. But let's start with what actually happened, because the timeline here pretty much tells us the entire story. So 10 p.m. Eastern on July 29th, Central Command closed the operation and put it on record. And here's what they said. CENTCOM assets struck dozens of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps targets in Iran, including military command centers, missile and drone facilities, coastal surveillance and defense sites, and maritime capabilities. The strikes aim to further diminish threats posed by Iran and its proxies to American forces, commercial shipping, and neighboring Gulf countries. That is Central Command's official release. Then, July 30th, it closes with a number that was not written for an American audience. More than 50,000 US service members deployed to the Middle East, vigilant, focused, and ready. That's meant for the IRGC. That's meant for the mullahs to remember. They've got 50,000 of the most incredible warriors on the planet sitting in their backyard. Basically, actually sitting in their pool, which they're calling their pool, which happens to be the Strait of Hormuz. They're basically saying, that's our little private vacation pool, the Strait of Hormuz. No, it's an international waterway. And at some point, you'll realize that. But then, when the strike package launched, it went for 3 straight hours. Iranian state media did have some reported detonations at Bushehr, Abu Musa, Kish Island, Avaz, and Keshem Island as well. And then claims from those Iranian outlets was that there was no confirmed American battle damage. Yeah, all those little explosions and all those buildings blowing up, that's not battle damage. No. It's not battle damage at all. Yeah, we're going to have to sit down the mullahs and explain to them what battle damage is. I mean, they're probably in some sort of golden bunker right now with a golden crapper in the golden bunker. So they really don't care what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz necessarily, because it's not impacting them directly. It's not like the mullahs are living by the Strait of Hormuz. They're just extorting it and using generals in the south to ship them up probably pallets of cash. Brent crude did rise a little bit. We know that it's been up and down over these last few days, but look at what the US military did using Patriot missiles, knocking down the different missiles going in to try to strike that base in Jordan again. But let's talk about the aircraft that are a part of this, because CENTCOM released a really cool graphic as well showing the naval blockade, how the naval blockade is just continuing to push Iran's ships back in, and it's making the mullahs go into full-blown panic mode. Imagine, they're losing $500 million a day alone just off of not being able to get their illicit oil sales done. The F-16 though, that's the most numerous fighter jet in the Air Force, and it's the workhorse of this campaign, and there's a specific reason that it drew last night's mission instead of something a little more exotic. Not survivability, not payload, availability, and stores. The amount of weapons this thing can carry, and on a single engine platform, is just amazing. These are basically unglamorous when you think about availability, but F-16s are the workhorse. They're basically the crotch rocket or the Harley Davidson. Yeah, they're probably more of like a Kawasaki Ninja. I think it's called the Ninja. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Probably like 1,000cc Kawasaki Ninja is what I would relate the F-16 to. That acceleration off the jump when you punch it into max afterburner. It takes a second for the jet engine to spool up, and then you are gone. So the acceleration there, the survivability, the fact that there's wild weasels that can actually hunt surface-to-air missiles. And then what we're seeing with this one, it's loaded out with GBU 39s 250-pound bombs. These have a time of flight You don't know how long the time of flight is going to be until you release them, but they have little wings that pop out and they can fly through a window. That's how precise they are. And then you've got the APKWS rocket system. That's a laser-guided rocket system. So your wingman could be lasing in that rocket. You could be lasing in that rocket. And it truly gives you the ability to strike down these Shahed drone swarms. Instead of swatting down a Shahed drone with $1 million plus Patriot missile, how about a $20,000 APKWS? This really solves that problem of efficiency, which is just great. The GBU 39 though, this is likely one of the biggest advancements that's happened in a weapon in decades. The GBU 39 is now outfitted with AI, so it has the ability to track certain targets like tracks of a tank or the outline of a satellite dish being used by the IRGC. Can do a lot of different things that other weapons can do. It's called the small diameter bomb. It's got pop-out diamondback wings. That's the official name of them. Better than a 60 nautical mile range from release. And 4 of them fit on one of those racks that we saw on that F-16. It's called the BRU 6-1 rack. 4 targets, 1 station, 1 airplane. And here's what that means from the cockpit. It means in one pass, you could wipe out multiple IRGC headquarters. So the small diameter bomb definitely is the solution that we're seeing flying a lot lately, as the IRGC likely moves more and more into the cities and they disperse from their headquarters because their headquarters have been absolutely crushed. Oh yeah. And then BAE Systems is the one who's built the APKWS. It's designated the AGR-20 and it's got a laser-guided kit that's added to the APKWS. They've built it for 12 years in Hudson, New Hampshire and Austin, Texas. It bolts onto a standard 70mm Hydra rocket. Per shot cost, it's $24,900. Had to have that extra $900 in there. But an AIM-9 runs about $500,000 and an AIM-120 runs $1 million. So incredible now to have this capability and getting this efficiency back and not letting Iran extract any more money from, the expenditures of the weapons that have already been released. But here's something cool and a story behind the APKWS. CENTCOM filed a Joint Urgent Operational Need. That's the paperwork you file when the cost curve is beating you. That became a FALCOFAC for you acronym lovers. This February, the Air Force put $145 million behind BAE for dual mode versions, adding an infrared seeker on top of the laser so the pilot illuminates just long enough to start the engagement. And the rocket finishes on its own while the jet moves to the next one. So it doesn't have to keep guiding it all the way in with the laser the entire time, which is massive. And this is what allows this thing to target drone swarms, and that's something that you won't find anywhere else. The fact that you can just tag it with the laser, get it off the rail, and then it starts to guide on its own. This is incredible technology, and it's a lot safer for fighter pilots, because if you had to guide this thing all the way in, especially in a single seat F-16, now you're not looking at the ground. A lot of these engagements are happening at nighttime while you're on NVGs. So those night vision goggles, you don't want to be just staring at your targeting pod while that laser is targeting that drone the entire time. That's just not a good tactical situation. And then threat lookout. If you're just targeting the drone for, a time of flight of 45 seconds or whatever the case may be, now you're not looking for threats around you. So I love the fact that these laser-guided rockets can just take over when the time is right. That's great. But remember, we can't discount Iran, right? Obviously, they've gotten a lot stronger than I think anybody really thought they would. Well, imagine that when you give pallet loads of cash to the IRGC or any mafia boss, they get stronger. Yeah, shocker on that one, right? I I look at this like giving pallets of cash to Pablo Escobar or Al Capone. How would that have gone? Like, what would we be dealing with today if for decades we had just given pallets of cash to these drug lords or these mafia bosses? Yeah, I think it'd be a pretty wild problem. It'd be a lot more than white-collar crimes going on in downtown Vegas. No, there'd be a lot more than just the mafia extorting and washing money. There'd be a lot bigger problems, let's say. So that's what we're dealing with in Iran. They've got dispersed networks of proxy forces. And the thing I love about what CENTCOM's doing right now is they're directly saying that Iran is directing the proxy forces, especially when it comes to Iraq, the Houthi rebels. So now Iran's basically lost their plausible deniability. So it's kind of like they've been found out and they're going to still deny it and gaslight, obviously, and they're going to keep launching ballistic missiles for these surprise attacks. Because again, remember, the mullahs themselves, they're isolated from the problem as much as the average everyday IRGC guy or the local population. So they're willing to just blast these ballistic missiles during, ceasefire, non-ceasefire, unofficial ceasefires, because they're just trying to get that extorted waterway to get them to send cash again. And it's like they're frustrated. They're like, man, we've had a rough day. We're mad. We're very angry. It's like dealing with a 5-year-old. You parents out there know what I'm talking about. But in this case, the 5-year-old has a big red ballistic missile button when they get angry. I mean, kind of the same thing, right? The mullahs see, oh, we only got $10 million in our bank account this month. We're used to getting $200 million. I mean, that's going to make them nervous. That's going to make these mob bosses nervous, which is just disgusting. But, that's the world that they live in. You made it to the global roundup section, my friend. So let's talk about something going on in eastern Poland yesterday. This F-16 driver gets the call. They scramble, run out to the jet. Looks like drones coming in from Russia. As they get close, looks like within 5 kilometers, what they found was a crater and fragments. Prime Minister Donald Tusk said everything points that it was a Russian Kh-101, likely a cruise missile, and that Poland was ready to engage it, but it malfunctioned or was shot down from some other forces before the F-16 actually got there. But with Russia now sending what looks to be a cruise missile towards Poland, this is a massive move from the Russian regime to try to keep NATO on their heels. That's their ultimate goal. But now, let's move to the 4D, chess strategic analysis section, my friends. So here are some connections that aren't being made in the legacy media. So when you look at what's going on right now with the post of the fighter jets and the coalition coming together with Saudi Arabia, looks like the A-10, Saudi Arabia, F-16s working together to do what's called suppression of enemy air defenses and then striking back at the ballistic missile points where these things are likely being launched from for the surprise attacks. Here's one thing though, from a 4D chess move that might help even more with this. And that would be incorporating the Anduril Fury, incorporating the Shield AI X-Bat. These are advanced drones that could team up with even things like the Apache. They could be flying air cover overhead and also reveal the Anduril Thunder, which is meant to help protect helicopters. Looks to me like it could be used to help out with the A-10 as well. Advanced systems to help take down enemy air defense networks across a broad spectrum when the enemy is trying to keep you from going in and hitting their targets. So very impressive seeing all this new technology, and I just hope it gets expedited into the theater. Because Shield AI X-Bat, I picture that thing up overhead. Even if you're in an F-15E or an F-16, having 4 or 5 shields up above you, protecting the airspace, spotting the drones, even spotting these drones that are being flown into energy infrastructure neighborhoods in Saudi Arabia.